Good afternoon. We are going to go through two hands where I call an early position raiser and we go to the river. So, hand number one, this is a 2NL game. I've got pocket fives. We are currently eight handed, and in this hand, under the gun, min raises. I'm going to say at the 2NL, it's going to be kind of hard to put people on ranges. You're going to have a wide variety of hands that people will make plays with. They may be making plays because they think it's a good play. They might not know, what the proper play is. So, we're going to see, we could see something strange happening with this hand. So this person's 24-20 with a 3-bet of 14%. Seems like he may be just a little bit loose aggressive. That's over 47 hands. C-bets flop 40%, so it's almost like he'll come in for a raise, but then he's only going to C-bet if he hits something. His 3-bet blinds for steal aces. His 3-bet range aces, ace, king. So, just out of that, you can see that it was, his 3-bet was 3 out of 21 hands. And of those, you can see aces, ace, king, and then one other hand of some sort. So it just could be that he got lucky. He may be passive, may be aggressive. 47 hands again, element of luck. So let's just go ahead and build this range. Two NL games. We're going to adjust what hands these players are going to be raising with. I think at this limit you don't see raises with these smaller pocket pairs, but you will see raises with some of the Broadway hands. So early position min raise might look something like that. I'm not even going to say that he has that he adjusts his raise size based on hand strength. He may just be doing min raise with his entire raising range, or he may pick these hands and say tens, jacks, and queens. I'm going to raise big because I don't want to be called, and then everything else it'll be somewhat small. We'll start there. Pocket fives. I guess it's okay. It's kind of a hand where I think we can just go ahead and fold. When we look behind us, you've got 33% 2-bet calling range, 20% 2-bet calling range. You've got 26% on the button. I think if we call, we're going to be taking this multi-way. And the other thing to consider is if we call, we're getting, it's two big blinds. We could potentially win 54 total. So we're, it's at least 20x the bet size, which we could set mine here. But if we call and someone raises, then we may have to go ahead and fold. Could we raise ourselves? Yeah, I think, if we think this is a bad player, we could try to isolate. 3-bet here, put pressure on these players to fold. If he calls, we're in position, and we can probably steal a large chunk of the time. In this hand, I just call, and the button calls, and the big blind calls. So it takes 4-way to this river, or I'm sorry, to this flop. So I flopped good, and our focus is going to be this player. If we look at the other two players seem to be, this player seems to be somewhat tight. I'm going to guess this player is mostly probably pocket pair. I expect them to raise some of their hands. We're going to raise, let's say aces and kings and so forth. So, if we were to break this down, I would expect him to raise, at least those. Maybe add in pocket queens, and since he just called, I think he's going to have a pretty wide range. We can say all pocket pairs, probably your suited aces, probably some of your suited kings, probably a big chunk of your suited hands, something like that. Your offsuits, connectors. I mean, it's in the big blind, so he's got, you know, uh, he's going to look at it and say, well, it's only, one more big bet. So he's going to be fairly liberal with that call. Maybe not too liberal, but he's going to be, somewhat liberal with the call. And when you look at the flop that was here, I don't think it really hits him strongly, but he could. I mean, he can have two pair. He can have the straight. He could have, potentially have the straight with an 8-5. 8-5 maybe in that range. Something like that, or it could be 5-3. But he has a large chunk of just unpaired cards. I'm not going to be surprised if he checks, and if there's a bet, we can check to see what happens on the turn, or we can bet ourselves and see what he does. If he calls, then it's a good chance that he either has a straight draw, or has hit a pair on this flop. This guy's going to be a lot tighter. So 25-12, he's on the button. I don't think he's going to be calling with all of these offsuit hands. I think he's, probably would have raised a ace queen. I'm going to say he probably called with these aces, and then he's probably going to call with all of his ace suiteds. Maybe something like that. He might not even have these gappers. So that's 16% to call. But we do have to watch out for the pocket pairs. And I think he'll tell us if he has those. So what happens in this hand? Well, he checks. Again, I don't think that's very telling. This villain decides to c-bet. So question is, what is he going to c-bet on this flop? This flop is going to miss that range. And that means this flop's actually going to be better for the callers. We know that he c-bets 40%. Or that he's c-bet 40% of the time, and that's 2 out of 5 hands. So I'm going to say, basically, he's got the overpair. I don't think he's going to be betting with the overcards. I don't think he's going to be doing it with the 2-card backdoor flush draw. At this point, I just don't. I think the only thing he has at this point is overpair. Maybe, I'll be surprised, but, just based on his sizing, he bet 6 big bets into 8.5. I think he's got that overpair. That's what he has, and against that overpair, we're at 38%. I mean, we have an open-ended straight draw right now. So I think I'm going to be okay to call and see what these other players do, and what we see both of them fold. So we'll take these guys out of the mix and focus on turn and river play. So the turn now is 6 of hearts. I think that's pretty good. It's his overpair has 2 pair. He checks, and I think with that overpair, I think we can check behind and see if we get our open-ended straight draw, or we can bet. I think if we bet here, he's gonna probably call. I think he's gonna probably call most of his overpair, because again the pot's 20.5. If we bet 20, it's gonna leave us with less than a half size pot bet on the river, because he'll be down to 28. We could just kind of shove all in and put him to a decision, and that may be good because with the overpair he may just decide, what, I think you have a 6, and that's it. We kind of have to think about how would a 6 play. If we had a 6, would we raise it now? Would we slow down and check it? Check it at any point. So he checks. I kind of think we should have probably bet. I think we probably should have bet half pot, kind of build up the pot, because if we did half pot, if we bet 10, then it leaves us for a pot size bet on the river on a favorable river card. Uh, I didn't do that. So we have his entire range going through it, which I think is just strictly the overpair, and then we hit the 8 of diamonds, which I think is pretty good for us. Gives us a straight. So villain 7 now overbets the pot, and I think that's going to be our concern. So when he does that, we have the straight, and we have to ask, okay, what is he going to do this with? Uh, how we've played the hand with when we called, it means we caught a piece of this flop, and he's betting it to say, look, I can beat any piece of the flop that you have. So when I look at this and I see that bet, I have to go back to my hand and say, did I mess up this assumption? Did I screw something up? Because at this point, having a 10, jack, queen, kings, or aces just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Uh, I mean, you have to think, maybe I have a 5. Maybe I have, 7, 8, and now I have two pairs, 7s and 8s. Why not, bet smaller and try to get me to call? Uh, Now this could be a complete bluff. Maybe he had, ace king of hearts, and our assumption that he would only bet over pairs, based on that, c betting 40%. Maybe that's off. I think we probably have to fold because of the bet size. So uh, I'm perfectly fine folding here, but I didn't do that. I actually called, and that's why we get to see the hand. He hit quad sixes. So quad sixes isn't even in his range, which we kind of thought based on this 24-20. We said his 3-bet range was 14%. Maybe he's actually raising, wider than what we thought. Maybe he's raising something like this as his pre-flop raise. And then if that's the case, then we can kind of go back and say, okay, this flop, he's going to have an overpair, he's going to have two pair, he's going to have a set. I think he'll probably bet open-ended straight draw, but I don't think and maybe the gut shot. Gut shot brings it up to 45.9%, but I don't think he's doing it with like ace king, ace queen. I think we'll say top pair. He'll also bet middle pair, 6-5. I think that gets caught up in the open-ended straight draw as well. So 45.9%. We're at 41%. I think that's okay. And then when the 6 of hearts comes and he checks it. Now with that range, we can say, well, what is he going to check? I think, quads is going to check. I think full house is going to check. Straight didn't make it. 3 of a kind with the 6, probably. I'd like to think they would bet, and the overpair would bet, maybe. Maybe the overpair checks too. I think the overpair checks too. I think all of these would check. And the question is, which ones would call if I bet? And I think the flush draw calls, open-ended straight draw calls. I don't think the gut shot calls anymore. I don't think a weak pair calls. A top pair with the 7. I don't think top pair would call. I think they'd find a fold. That's a 7-8. Overpair calls, 3 of a kind calls. So I think if I bet, I'm getting called by 83%. I'm at 30%. So with this revised range, I mean, just kind of like before, I think if I bet, I'm only really gonna get called by better hands. I need to hit my flop. So the checks good, and then that 8 of diamonds with this range. Again, I think the sizing is what's noticeable. Maybe at a higher limit, that sizing allows us to call because we hit the straight, and I think an overpair might do that. I think a busted heart draw could do that. Maybe even, pocket fives would do that. No, I'm sorry, not pocket fives. Maybe like a 9-10. No, that's here. That's a straight. 7, 8. Say 8-9. Where they had that open ended and then they hit the 8. They may do something like that. Try to get you to fold, an overpair or something like that. But at this limit, 2NL, you got to fold it. He wants it. He says he wants to play for stacks, over bet the pot. Yeah, we have the straight, but I think he's got, against this range, against the top pair, I don't think he's going to bet that much with top pair. At list limit, I don't even think he's going to do that with an overpair, which means straight plus we're at 6%, 7%. We're not getting that. We need to fold. So overall, just an overall bad play on my part with these pocket fives. Should have probably just dumped them and saved myself the headache. So I'd be still at 207 big blinds instead of 151. So that's hand number one. I'm going to pause, get hand number two set up. All right, hand number two, under the gun +1. This is an 8-handed table. We're playing a 4NL game. I get ace queen of spades. So under the gun, min raises. He's 33-16 with a 3-bet range of 4%. I've got 270 hands on him. His 16% pre-flop raise is basically 16% across the positions. So MP's higher, but again, with the number of hands, this could just be situation and luck of the card. So I think we could assign him close to a 16% opening range. So if we do this, I'm going to bring this in, the second one in. We're going to say we're looking at something probably like this. Suited connectors. Maybe King Jack, maybe Ace 10. Could have these in there. If they don't, then I think we're going to be heavier with our Broadway hands here. But just kind of being convention, I'm going to say this is probably the range, 13.4%. Ace Queen spades does quite well against that range. We're above 50%, so I think we could raise and isolate. If we raise and isolate, I think he's going to be calling with his pocket pairs. He's probably going to be calling with this entire range, especially at this limit. His fold to pre-flop 3-bet after raise is only 33%. So if he dumps hands, it may be these smaller pocket pairs, maybe those smaller suited connectors, but I probably not. So what about these other players? So if we call, I think we're going to get called by this guy. He's called 55% of 2-bets. He's got this one's 29%. This is 25%. He's 14, 10, and 17. So out of 18 hands, he's called 2-bets 55% of the time, 6 out of 11. I think he's a strong candidate who would likely come in. He would have position on us. I'd rather not have that happen. 29%, it's 15 out of 51. This is out of 173 hands. So he is also, I think if he comes in, villain 9 might also come in to get position. I mean, both of them are loose. It's 16-17 or 67-17. This villain's 46-32. So I kind of think with ace queen suited, we should raise here to try to isolate the field. If we get called, my guess is that we will be ahead of these players. Did I raise? Nope, I just called. I think this was a mistake. And then we had villain 9 come in for the 3-bet. So what is villain 9's range? So villain 9 is 46 VPIP, 32% pre-flop raise. Now he's 3-betting at 12%. I think he is going to be somewhat tight on his 3-betting range. That's 4% right there. Now this 12%, 6 out of 51. Let's do a position stat here. So positionally, his 3-bet pipe position, 1 out of 2 in EP, 2 out of 9 for MP, a 0 out of 5 for cutoff, 1 out of 10 for button. I don't think he's more likely to raise in this later position, I think he's playing his cards. So 4%'s pretty tight. I think we're going to have to add a few more hands, and it may be something like that. That's 7%. 7% three betting range. Uh, that's not as wide as 12%. Um, we could probably add a few more. Maybe add something like this. That's 11%. That gets us closer, but I'm not quite sure. I think against this player, I mean, how laggy he is. I think we can probably get away with at least something like this. We're gonna say this is their conservative range, 9.8%, not quite the 12, but as sample sizes increase, we could get closer. I guess against this range, I think we're still doing pretty good. 53%. You can see he has a lot of unpaired cards, and even with these smaller pocket pairs, we have a chance of catching a queen or an ace that would give us top pair. Uh, I don't know if we would have gotten into the situation if we would have three bet ourselves. So it folds around. Even this person folded, so we'll get him out, and it's back to us. Now, what do? Uh, we can raise, and I think if we raise, he's gonna likely. I think if we raise, it's going to drastically narrow his range down. I think he will only call with, let's say, kings plus ace king, and that puts us at a significant disadvantage. It's going to be heads up, so I think calling here is going to be okay because we can probably figure to make extra money on the flop. His c-bet flop statistics 78%, and then his turn is 38%. So calling I think is probably good because we can get money in now with all of his weak hands, and he will likely c-bet with all of those weak hands. And then if he missed on the turn, he'll just, if he missed the board, he'll probably check the turn, and we could probably pick it up with a river bluff. So I think calling is going to be perfectly fine here, which I did do, and then we saw flop. Board was queen high, queen of hearts, eight of clubs, four of spades. Obviously, we have top pair. My guess is when we check, he's going to bet. And he's going to likely bet the vast majority of his range. All right. So we're going to say basically any pair he's going to bet. Open-ended straight draw, I think gut shot, over cards, maybe. Overcards ace king, I think he'll bet those. Two card backdoor flushes, that adds some, like the 8 9 9 10 jack 10. Probably not. Probably not. At least not all of them. We can select out some of them. I won't. I think we'll just leave it at that. So that's 78.7. I think that's fine. We've got pair. You've got gut shot, open-ended straight draw. So 78.7, and against that range we're at 70%. So that's kind of my guess. If we check and he bets, that's kind of that range. So I think we can check. If we bet, I think we're going to narrow his range down a little bit more, and we're going to lose out on some value. So I think if we bet, I think he might fold the middle pair. He might fold the pocket pair below top pair. He'll call with the top pair, which is fine because he's calling with king, queen, and queen jacks, which we beat. But we're talking about he's going to be folding. He might fold a gut shot, and he'll probably fold the overcards too. So we're at 78%. Let's take those out and say if we bet, he's only calling 32.6%. I don't really like that. I think it makes more sense to let him bet a larger percent. because it gives us a chance to win more money. I mean, some of those hand cards can catch, like if an ace comes, that ace king now has hit, he's going to pay off even more. Where if I bet that he could have just folded right now. So I checked, he checked behind, and that's kind of interesting because the question is what hands would check. I think the set would have bet. I think two pair would have bet. Over pair would have bet. I do think a top pair would have bet. Pocket pair below top pair could have checked. Middle pair could have checked. Weak pair, ace high, no made hands. I think all of those could have checked. Our gut shots, I thought gut shots would have bet. Um, we'll leave the. I thought overcards, ace king would have bet as well. But we have our two card backdoor flush draws. Not all of them, because I think ace king's gonna bet. I think ace queens would have bet. King queen would have bet. Queen jack would have bet. I think ace jack and ace 10, I'm gonna say they wouldn't have bet. So we're at 65.2%. I assume pocket pair below top pair would have bet. Maybe we're wrong. So we're gonna take those out, all of the pairs, and just say he wouldn't have bet any of the pairs. And that means, let's adjust those. 9, 8 is no longer in there. Ace high hands. We got to take out the ace kings. Except, so 30%. No made hands. We said gut shots. Ooh, we're going to adjust those. So we're going to take out the 10 jack, that was a gut shot, and the 9-10, that was a gut shot. So we're at 21.3%. So all of the ones that we thought were going to bet, they're in their checking range. So we are now massive favorite. Six of spades comes. That gives us top pair with the spade draw. Now I bet 6.25. So I didn't even bet half pot. What is that? Maybe a quarter pot. And the question is why. I'm at this point. I'm trying to build a pot. He's demonstrating he doesn't really have anything. If he happens to be slow playing trips, I've got now I've picked up some equity with the spade draw. I think with the betting, I think he's gonna probably call the flush draw. But at this point, I'm just trying to build up a pot, and if he doesn't have anything, he doesn't have anything. I can't. I think my hand's too good to let it check through. Now, to my surprise, he calls. So the question is, what is he calling with? He might think that I'm trying to bluff with the ace high, but I don't think he's crazy enough to call. So I think at this point, all I'm thinking is a flush draw. He's calling with a flush draw, which is 5%. And then on the river, two of spades hits, which is good, because now he has a flush. At least I think he has a flush, and I have a bigger flush. So now I bet 30, just basically bet pot. It puts them all in. And that's the other thing to consider. He's got 30. So, that quarter size bet, I'm putting it small enough to where if he has a spade draw, he's going to call, or he likely should call, almost 4-1, because he might be thinking, well, if I call and I hit the spade, I'm going to win all of the rest. So the implied odds are there, even though they're not. He did call, so now we hit. It's up to 24, which it's easier just to bet pot. I did. I think he's calling with all his flushes. He calls, and let's see what he has. He did. He had the flushes, the 10-7. Now 10-7 wasn't in his range, which is kind of interesting, because basically the only flush I have is king jack. So now that we know he's gonna raise with 10-7, maybe he was attempting a squeeze. So completely missed his range, and it comes down to the assumption. So if he did 10-7, if he called with 10-7, he's probably also calling with all of, or three betting with all of these. 10-7, 9-6, 8-5, probably. Probably all these pairs. Probably that. I mean, he could have also done it with all of the kings. Maybe something like that. Uh, so 26.4%. And then, on the flop, when you look at it, when he checks, I still think he's got a weak pair. Maybe the ace highs, minus the ace king, the no made hands, take out the gut shots and so forth. We took out two card backdoor flush draws. We added all of those, but I think we took out the pairs. So we've got all of those, and then six of spades hits. I bet now small, and I think when we bet small, he's gonna probably. I think with the straight, he's gonna raise over the top. I think with the set, he's gonna raise over the top. Same thing with two pair. I think he's gonna come over the top because he's gonna try to push me out, and with that, we had 17, and I bet small. When he comes over the top and he'll push all in on those hands, we will see that I probably don't have the odds to call. So he's got 24.5. So that's how much more he would have raised. So I have to call that in order to win. Plus 6.25 times 2 plus 17.5. What's in the pot? So I would need 45% equity to make that call if he shoves over the top, and I don't think I would, because I don't think a queen is gonna make that play. I think we're gonna deal with two pair or better. So let's just check it. So let's say he comes over the top with two pair or better. So my equity is only at 24%. I basically have to hit my flush draw. And I have some outs with the ace, but I'm really just looking for the flush draw. Would he do that with, let's say, a top pair hand? Queen 10, queen 9? No, I don't think so. So when I bet and he calls, I think we are dealing with your flush draw, maybe the open-ended straight draw, maybe the gut shot. And against that range, I'm still at 89%. And then when that last card hit, when that two of spades hits, I think when I bet, I'm getting called by the straight. I'm getting called by flushes. Yeah, I'm getting called by straight flush, but seriously, you can't worry about that. So I'm at 94%. Now that kind of still makes sense, even though I had a super tight range. When we expanded it, kind of his play is suggesting he doesn't have trips. He doesn't have two pair. He's got that flush and or straight. So we try to maximize our value. Just shove in. All right. So we missed our assumptions. Not terribly surprising. I mean, we were playing, hand number one was 2NL, and this is 4NL. So those low stakes games, and players do strange stuff. Players do strange things. What was this three bets? I didn't want to look at it because we would see that 10-7 on the hand, and you could see his three bet included Jack 10 offsuit too. So I think we were okay with expanding it. Once we saw he did it with 10-7 suited, I think adding in the Jack 10 offsuit and making it very wide starts to give us an idea. And with that C-bet 78%, he's going to be betting all of his pairs. He's going to be betting his good draws. He doesn't have anything, and when we sucked him in, when we bet that quarter pot size bet on the turn, he's on that spade or straight draw. That's about it. All right, hopefully you learned something. learned, once we saw what he actually played with, we can adjust the range and see is that going to change our line at all. And in this hand, I don't think it does. In the first hand, with pocket fives, I do think we probably should have changed our line after seeing that he's capable of making the plays with those small pocket pairs. It kind of makes sense. I think it argues against trying to make a play on the turn, um, make a bet on the turn to try to get out the over pairs. Uh, I think we have to be cautious that he may have just hit a full house. All right, hopefully you enjoyed it. Look tomorrow for two more hands.